to Mr. Greg Lopez and save Mr. Chuck Edwards, who is on appropriations, for last. So Greg Lopez, our colleague from Colorado, I yield 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Swagel, thank you for joining us. I see that you've been with CBO since 2019. I have read the law from 1974. And today I'm going to focus on my questions on accuracy. So would you agree that the responsibility for all the final products of CBO rests solely on CBO, which ultimately falls on your shoulders?
That's right. I agree.
So in 2019, CBO overestimated revenue by $12 billion, underestimated spending by $3 billion, and underestimated the deficit by $31 billion. In 2020, CBO underestimated revenue by $312 billion, underestimated spending by $202 billion, and overestimated the deficit by $110 billion. In 2021, CBO underestimated revenue by $614 billion, overestimated spending by $250 billion, and overestimated the deficit by $864 billion. In 2022, CBO underestimated revenue by $497 billion, underestimated spending by $303 billion, and overestimated the deficit by $194 billion. CBO in 2023 overestimated revenue by $477 billion, underestimated spending by $564 billion, and underestimated the deficit by $1.4 trillion. This happened since your tenure. Who's responsible for these notable errors?
I mean, as you just said, all the products of the agency are my responsibility. And actually, just one more sentence on this. In such as these, the numbers you listed are things I've thought about. And I've gone through each of those years, 21, 22, 23, to think about, well, why was it different than what we projected? And is there some lesson? Is there something we're doing wrong we need to fix? Or is there something, well, the administration did something I could not possibly have anticipated. And then, in some sense, it's not, it's not for me to fix, but for me to understand. So I can go through each year, but just to say, it's something that I think about, as instances.
So we're in agreement that ultimately all the products CBO fall on your shoulders?
I agree, yes.
Okay. So when was the last time CBO updated its software systems? And how often does CBO update its modeling or software?
Yeah. So, our work is generally, it's a collection of different approaches and different models, so that will differ by different topic. So, as an example, our Social Security modeling, we're in the process of updating it now, removing from Fortran to Python, for example. So, no one's learning Fortran today. I learned that when I was in high school. Everyone's learning Python or Java, so we're updating that. So it's just a mix as our ability and as our budget allows.
Okay. So in recent years, how much of CBO's budget has been allocated to modernize efforts, technological updates to ensure it has the necessary tools to do its work?
Most of our budget is people. So, around, it's like a high 80s, 90% of our budget is people, and then technology is the next piece. There's a certain lumpiness to it. We've had, basically we had a couple years where we couldn't afford to update some of our computer hardware, routers, some of our, the desktops and laptops. And so this year, we've put a lot into that. So there's a lumpiness to it, but it's 10% or less of our budget.
Okay. So as I mentioned, I want to follow up with Mr. Chairman's question in the beginning as to who do you work for? And so as I look at the budget of the Act of 1974, are you familiar with Title II, Congressional Budget Office, Section 201, subsection 4? Are you familiar with that?
No, you'd have to read it out. I don't, I wouldn't know offhand.
Okay. Well, I would encourage you to always keep a copy of the law on your desk. Let me share with you what it says. And I quote, "The director may be removed by either house by resolution." That means, Dr. Swagel, that this committee is meant to serve as your oversight committee. And so when we ask you to come and come before us, and I think it's important for you to be coming before us more often, because we are the oversight committee. And again, we want to help, but these accuracy or inaccuracies prevent us from doing our job. So I caution you that we must have the right information in order for us to be able to do our jobs correctly, and recognizing that there is in the law itself that we are the oversight committee. I would hope that in the future, you are more clear and accurate in your projections, because the baselines is what the federal government relies on as we move forward.
Great. No, thank you very much. And it's something I agree that that's our goal, is to get you the information you need when you need it, and for it to be as accurate as transparent.
So let me ask you this. If you had an employee that for 9 years was providing you with documentation that was not accurate, what would you do?
Last question, Dr. Swagel, would you give him a quick answer, please?
Okay, of course I will. You know, I'd want to understand why, what's going on. Is it, you know, again, is it systematic? Is it, you know, this year is one thing, next year is the other thing? That's the kind of questions I would ask at the start.
Okay.
I think the